Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Glad to have you with us. My name is Ron Haas. I'm CEO of the Timothy Group. And today I'm joined by three of my colleagues, two of my colleagues, I guess. I got to count differently here. Rich Cummins is our president. Welcome, Rich.
Hey Ron, great to be here with you guys.
And Chad Sutton is our senior consultant. I just almost gave you a different title, but glad to have you too.
Welcome, everybody. Great to be here.
Thanks so much. So, we've all sat in board rooms. We've conducted lots of board retreats. We've helped ministries build governance structures that make their mission sustainable. And we're happy to share this workshop today on how to have healthy board habits to recruit, train, and develop boards. So before we jump into that, let me just start with a quick word of prayer. Lord, thank you for this topic. We know that these nonprofits, these ministries need leadership, and we need volunteer leadership to help us accomplish our goal. I pray you help us today discuss some important things to help our boards be even more effective. And we love you and thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. So today's session is going to take 60 minutes or so, and we want you to leave with at least one concrete action that you can take in the next 30 days to build a stronger board, because we know how vital it is to have strong leadership around you. So let me give you the map of where we're going today. Here's our board habits that we want to share with you. So we have 7 board habits that we have thought through with you, and we want to give you these together. We've got Rich and I are going to talk about the board you have versus the board you need. And then we're going to talk about the first 2 habits, to pray purposefully and to give generously. Rich is going to help us understand how we can know our mission and govern with integrity. Then Chad's going to jump in and help us with the habits of helping our board members become ambassadors and to help you create a culture of generosity. And then we'll talk about some implementation things, and we'll have a Q&A time at the end. So please, as things come along, there is a Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Jump in, share your questions. We'd love to have you participate, and we'd love to answer questions. So before we jump in, here's a poll of where we want to go. So I want to know, how would you describe your board's current health? So we've got 4 choices. Would you say you're struggling? Our board is not fully engaged. We need a reset. Would you say we're getting by? So our board functions, but they lack clarity or ownership. Would you say your board is solid? And you would say, we're aligned and we want to take it to the next level? Or would you say, hey, we're thriving. We're just here to get a few tips to make us even better. So just give us kind of your read on where you think your board health is right now. So this is like going to the doctor's office. Step on the scale and tell us. And we're going to maybe, I don't know, give you the blood pressure thing, see what's going on. Okay. So thanks. Okay, so this is good. So a lot of you say, hey, we're getting by, but we kind of lack clarity, ownership. Some of you are really struggling. Some of you are really in good shape. So hopefully the things that we share today are going to encourage you and help you. We want to be able to give you the tools to have the conversations that you need to make some improvements. So let's jump right in. So Rich, I want to ask you to help us understand, how do we get to the board we need?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ron, and really it helps me to think about starting with that question with boards often. It reminds me of a friend of mine, a former board chair that used to start the annual retreats that board would be a part of with one simple question. He used to say, if you could rebuild this board from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? And that question does something important. One, it gives people permission to be honest about the gap between the board they have and the board that the mission actually requires. And two, it just gets them in the right framework so that they can have a productive meeting and time together when they're looking at the vision forward future. And so most boards that I actually encounter are made up of great people that were never given clear expectations. They were they were recruited with enthusiasm, but they might have had a vague description of what the role actually involves. So we need to make sure that they understand, have a great understanding of expectations. And so what happens is they'll if they don't have expectations, they're going to default to what they know. And some would give faithfully, some would govern carefully, and you know what? Some would just be silent. That's my experience. And then the executive director or the CEO learn to actually work around those gaps rather than address them in a direct manner. And so those are some dysfunctions that need to be worked out. So the answer to this gap, it's not a new strategic plan. It's a set of disciplines, habits that you recruit for, you train towards, and you hold each other accountable with. And that's what Ron, Chad, and I are going to be walking through today. And we might even call them Ron's rules of order. You never know,
Oh,
Ron. How about
oh,
that?
I like
So,
that. I like that.
so we think about scripture with this too. In Proverbs 20:18, you can see it on the screen there. Plans are established by counsel, by wise guidance, wage war. And so, Ron, let's talk about what the habit overview will actually be for today.
Right. So what we're trying to help you understand is you're not just managing a board, you're cultivating a team of mission partners. And so it requires intentionality at every stage. We're trying to grow in your board governance, in your board skills. So we got two habits that we want to start with. In fact, I want to show you all the habits all at once. So these are habits that we've thought about over the years and we've implemented and tried to help you understand. I'm going to cover the first two. To pray purposefully, it's so vital. To give generously, these are board habits. We want them to know the mission. We want them to govern with integrity. That's the rule. I mean, that's why we have these friends to help us, is to help us guide the mission. We want to engage them as ambassadors. This is an important concept that I think we can encourage you with. We want to cultivate a culture of generosity, all of us in all of our ministries. And then we want to steward with excellence. Your ministry is a gift from God, and you need to be able to, you're responsible, and so are your board members. So let's just jump into the first two habits. I'm going to talk about the first two habits. And the first one is to pray purposefully. Well, I mean, I don't know how you run your board meetings, if they're Robert's rules of order or Ron's rules of order or somebody else's rules of order. But I really think as a Christian ministry that prayer needs to be a vital part of what you do. As the verse that Rich talked about, that plans are established, well, they're established through prayer and leading of the Spirit. And I think what that means to me is I want to find board members who can pray with me because I need a lot of prayer. So the core question I would ask if I'm trying to recruit someone, I'm saying, okay, is this person's faith real, active, or is it superficial? Now, I mean, it's great. I mean, I've had been a lot of boards, and sometimes we invite a lot of board members come, but I want them to have the same Christian worldview that I really have. And sometimes you find that out when you get in the heat of the battle and you say, oh, well, maybe you don't quite have the same viewpoint of this as I do. Well, you can't screen it all, but I think one of the things I can screen is their prayer life. Like, I want to know, do you pray? Because we need to pray as an organization. So the red flags that I would have here is that their faith is mentioned only as a background, not as a present tense. I want to have people have a vital relationship with the Lord to help me guide this ministry. So, do you have a connection to a local church? I mean, some people are Christians, but they never go to church, and that's true, but that is one of those flags that would concern me because I want people to be engaged at the level of their local community. And then Another red flag for me is an unfamiliarity with the ministry's specific spiritual mission. I mean, do you really understand what we're trying to accomplish here? Or are you here for other reasons? It's hard. So the green flags about this, as I'm looking to try to recruit people to help me as a board member, that I want somebody who can pray with me and join me because we're in a difficult challenge to serve the Lord and reach the people we're trying to reach. So I want somebody who can be a prayer warrior with me. I have a friend who said, we went through a lot of challenges and we just began to say, we're going to spend time in prayer. And they said, after we had that as a priority, our challenges didn't go away, but our challenges, it smoothed out for us. We were able to go through that. So I want somebody who has a devotional life, who has a spiritual accountability. I want somebody who's growing in their faith. And I want somebody who sees their board service as a calling. So this pray purposely concept is I want me as a ministry leader, I want to have a culture of prayer. And so the practical application is structural. So you need to build a prayer into your meeting itself. So, a genuine 10, 15 minutes is good. It's important because there's a lot of things to pray about. We got program things to pray about. We got pray for your donors by name, pray for your agenda, pray for your constituents, pray for your leaders. There's a lot of things. I want also to, when you pray, board members need to pray for specific donors by name in between the meetings. I think that's great. When you pray consistently, something shifts. And so the board becomes a body that seeks the Lord together, and that changes how they make decisions. And so here's the accountability principle that I want to leave you with. If prayer is the first thing you cut from your agenda, when your agenda runs long, your board has learned that, well, prayer is just kind of an optional thing. And so I think that shapes everything else. So that's the first priority I think you need to consider. The next priority is to give generously. Well, the financial commitment that is what we want all of our board members to buy in and to participate in. Where your treasure is, there is where your heart is also, right? I mean, we need to have board members that are giving to our ministry. So nationwide, the average is that for nonprofits, average board member participation is 74%. Where do you land? Is that good for you? Would you like that, or would you be disappointed with that? We always talk about 100% of our board giving. That's a great goal, but in reality, only 46% of boards nationwide reach that 100% threshold. So if you're not there, I don't know if you should be happy or sad, but you be average. I think it's a goal, but it's a challenge. I think boards should give. Usually we want boards to account for about 10% of the total fundraising, especially in a campaign. But really, it should be 15 to 30%. But it depends on how big your board is, how big your organization is. Like if you got a $50 million organization, it's kind of hard to have a board member, give 30% of that. But the point is we want boards to give generously. So how do you frame that? How do you help that and encourage that? So one way to do it is to set the expectation before they join the board. So here's a phrase. Here's one way to say it. We ask every board member to make this ministry one of their top 3 philanthropic priorities. So that doesn't mean we're all giving the same amount. It does mean that we're giving at a level that is personally significant to you. And so before I extend that formal indication, I'd love to know what you're thinking about that. I just really think you need to be open. And honestly, I've seen just recently a board where some weren't giving at all. In fact, I think we had like the 46% thing. It's like, okay, it's hard for me to say that you're with it if you aren't in it financially. So how can I move board members from being a giver? I want them to be a giver, but I want them to do much more than just give. So how do I move them to a fundraising partner with me? So I think there's some ways you can do that. I think the first stage is personal givings. Every board member needs to give personally meaningful what is meaningful for them. But the next step is grateful advocacy. So can they articulate personally and specifically why they give? Why is it important to them? And then we're moving them to active fundraising. Can they open some doors? Can they host some events? Can they make some introductions for us? And we're not necessarily asking to ask for the gift, but we'd love to have them make introductions. That's so important. So how do I move board members to active fundraising? So I'm thrilled when board members reach stage 1 and call it a success. I'm thrilled about that. But the goal is stage 3. So how do I get them there? Well, I want to get them there by training them, by doing role plays, by doing the first ask together, and not just delegating. Say, hey, go out and raise money for us. Board members won't do what they feel unprepared to do. We need to equip them and give them the tools to be successful. There's another slide there that says all those things that I just said. See, I knew it was. So now we want to talk about the next board habit. Do we know the mission? So Rich, jump in and help me.
Absolutely. So habit 3, do our board members know the mission? This is actually an area where I see boards fail the most, or in their process of recruitment. Oftentimes you'll see somebody that joins a board just because they believe in what the organization does in general terms, but they may not be all in, if you will. So they might like the mission and respect the leaders and they want to serve. They're intellectually aligned, but they're not emotionally connected. And I recall this because I was one of them one time. I served in an organization that seemed to have a rotating spot on this particular board. And while I thought it was a great organization, my heart was never really aligned with what that organization was all about. So I was a board member and governing an organization that I really cared for a bit, but not entirely. And so we want to work around, we want to work away from that. And so what I found consistently is that board members who are intellectually aligned, like I was with that organization years ago, but not emotionally connected, they're going to give inconsistently. They're probably going to attend sporadically, off and on, and they'll usually disengage within 2 years. So we want to make sure that we have the heart of the people that we're engaged with and that they're aligned. And so here's some recruitment questions that I typically ask board members that are recruits or candidates coming on board. These are the things that I would ask them. What first connected you to this ministry? You want to know their story. You want to know how the ministry has impacted their lives or the community or the people around them. So what connected you? Second, I want to know, what would it mean to you personally if this ministry or this organization didn't exist? And so are they connected in a way that if the ministry, which exists to solve a problem, was gone, how would that impact this recruit or this board candidate? Third, where do you see God working in this space right now? Another great question to ask them to see if they're aligned, if their heart is aligned with the mission of the organization. So the answer to these questions really will reveal whether someone has a stake in the mission, not just an opinion about it, and if they're going to be really an effective board member. So recruit, again, from the former, a person that has a stake in the mission, rather than the latter, that they're just kind of there for general reasons. And so from there, the development work is mostly about mission fluency. And I use a 3-level framework when I go into that. Level 1, I want to make sure that at a bare minimum, our board members can recite the mission statement. Now, if you got a mission statement that's 4 paragraphs long, the first thing you should do is minimize that thing. Be succinct and clear. Bring it down to something that really can roll off the lips and be part of a pitch. an elevator pitch, if you will. Your board members need to be able to recite that. Level two is when they can explain the why behind the mission. Every organization, every ministry exists to serve a problem. Why does yours exist? And your board members need to be able to explain that. Now, level three, this is the big one. So not only should they be able to recite the mission statement and tell why you exist, also we want them to be able to tell a story that makes a stranger lean in. We want them to be able to be world-class storytellers and talk about why your organization and the mission of your organization is so vital, and they need to be able to do that in a story. So your job as an executive director or a board chair, somebody that's influencing the process of board recruitment and board training, you need to make sure that every board member rises to the level three before you ever have them sit across the table from a prospective donor. All right. So one practical tool that we at the Timothy Group recommend is, and this makes it easy. Okay. So you want to get these board members talking about the story of the organization. So assign one board member per meeting to share a 3-minute impact story. That could be how they're impacted by the mission. It could be how they've seen the folks that you serve, the clients you serve be impacted, or a story that they've actually heard that compelled their hearts. Get those board members to tell those stories. Have one board member per meeting do that, rotate through the full board over the course of the year. That one habit alone will build mission fluency and storytelling capacity simultaneously. It'll do both. All right, let's move on to habit 4, govern with integrity. And so we're going to talk about a board skills matrix here. And so governing with integrity really is about two things. It's having the right people and developing them to govern well. And I recommend that every board maintain a skills matrix and recruit explicitly to fill the gaps that you might have. Oftentimes I say that there's three types of board members we need. And obviously, from a fundraising perspective, we want those that are very generous, that they will give. We also want those that are influencers, those that know everybody in your community and can encourage people to be a part of the mission. But then we need to recruit for specific skills. And here's some basic categories we look for. One would be legal and risk management. A board that I serve on currently, we have an attorney that's a part of that team. And there was an attorney before that attorney that was a part of that board as well. So you want to look in the legal area. You want to look at financial oversight and accounting. We also on that board have a treasurer that is an accountant by nature. Very important area. Here's another one, major donor and philanthropic networks. Like I mentioned, you need to have people that are very generous and influencers connected to other generous people. You also need to have marketing and communication specialists. That comes in very handy as you're trying to create top of mind awareness for your ministry. You want to have somebody that has ministry and a theological background. There are some organizations that say, hey, we're always going to have X amount of pastors that are on our board. Doesn't have to be your organization, but I think it is very important that you have somebody that can speak from a subject matter expertise about faith. And then human resources and executive leadership. That's another one. So on the development side of the table, onboarding is not an option. Let me say this again, onboarding, not an option. In the first 30 days, every new board member should have received a signed board member agreement, governance orientation with the ED or board chair. You need to give them access to current financial statements, because if they don't know where you're at financially, they can't govern properly. You also need to give them a strategic plan summary if you have one. They need to know where you're heading, where the future is, and what the steps are to get there. They also need to sign a conflict of interest policy. I would not make that an option. That needs to happen. You also need to assign a mentor relationship with a seasoned board member. That is so important. Even looking at like a dyad type of situation where you have somebody that's more seasoned grouped with somebody that's newer to the board for a period of time to walk them through, answer questions, help them understand the way this board typically operates. So that's the baseline. If your current onboarding is less than that, then you're setting board members up to disengage.
That's good. Yeah, thanks for that's a detail. That's a lot of stuff you just
A
gave
lot of
us.
stuff.
It's just like drinking from a fire hose. It's like, oh, wow. Okay, so help me, Chad. Help me because I gotta just come up for air. So help me help engage board members of as ambassadors.
Well, this has been really good stuff. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, and I know we've got a couple of guys on the call that are thinking about starting a 501c3. So in some ways, you get a leg up on wanting to be able to start this off on the right foot. But look, the most underutilized asset on most ministry boards is the networks of the people sitting around the table at your meetings. Executive directors tell me their board could open doors that they can't open alone. Of course, that's true. But when I ask whether those doors are actually being opened, the answer is almost always no. And the reason is not a lack of willingness, it's a lack of preparation, maybe structure, clarity about what they're being asked to do. Board feels timid and unprepared. So here's how I frame sort of the ambassador conversation at the recruitment stage. Who do you know in your professional or community network that might have a heart for this mission? Are you connected to any foundations, any civic organizations, or business networks? Have you shared about your work here with those organizations? Could you see yourself introducing the executive director to 2 or 3 key people in your personal network each year? I mean, that's not a big ask. 2 or 3 people a year. So here's the framing again. I recommend using it the actual board invitation. This is onboarding perhaps a new board member filling a seat. Part of serving on this board is opening doors we cannot open ourselves. We're not asking you to fundraise. They may not be able to hear that, but emphasize it. We're not asking you to fundraise. We're asking you to make introductions. And that's a powerful distinction. Most board members who resist fundraising will happily make introductions if they feel prepared to do so. So here's a tool to help board members overcome the I don't know anybody barrier. These circles, this name storming exercise can be extremely helpful in beginning to sort of think, well, wait a minute, I do know all these people. So if you walk them through the linkage exercise, you can see on this slide here, the various circles of influence. Harold has Kawana's work, golf, church, his wife's work, Kelly's school, and helping the board member visualize their potential network helps change their mindset and think of others who may be interested in your ministry. Then you would need to help equip them. Provide a ministry one-pager written specifically for board member conversations, not for general audiences. Give them 3 to 5 talking points they can use naturally at dinner or in passing, casual conversation. Set an annual goal of 2 to 3 donor introductions per board member per year. That's an expectation set at the board level. So here's a critical step. Most ministries skip. Accompany your board member to the first introduction meeting. Do not send them alone. Hey, you got this, Bill. Go, let me know how things work out. No, go with them. Meet the person that they know. Maybe you'll be able to naturally take over the conversations from there. But the board members will not do what they feel unprepared for. Equip them and they will surprise you. Make it easy, natural, and fun. Fundraising should be fun. So
Yeah, we used to say that at the tip of the group that we were experts on fundraising. Fundraising.
yeah.
It could be a slogan. Let's think about that. All
We
right,
put the
so
fun,
Chad,
we
great.
put the fun
So
back in fundraising.
yeah, that's what it was. We put the fun back in fundraising. Okay, so this is good. So help us think about creating a culture of generosity because I think this is how a board can really help you as a ministry.
Right. And so it really starts with the executive director. That role could be called the chief generosity officer for your organization. The way the executive director talks about giving in board meetings, in staff conversations, in really all correspondence sets the emotional temperature for everyone in the organization. So practically, this means speaking about giving as a joy, and a privilege, not a burden. Oh my gosh, I got to go talk to this donor again. No, hey, I'm going to talk to Bill Smith today. He's such a faithful supporter. He's really leaning into our ministry. I think today's the day I'm going to make an ask of him. We're inviting people into kingdom investment. You know, people aren't cash registers. They're not ATM machines. So when you talk about donor engagement, when you talk about what you're doing with donors, it helps to take some of the sting out of what other people think or the fear. So giving is a joy, celebrating donors publicly, specifically in board meetings. Hey, you know, we talked to so and so, had a great conversation. He's involved now. Sharing your own giving story appropriately and authentically. Treating the annual fund as a year-round conversation, not a seasonal crisis. Often we're going from crisis to crisis. And then equipping your board members to mirror this activity, excitement, joy, kingdom investment. Engage your board in activities such as thank you-a-thon calls. After each major campaign, assign a certain number of givers to certain board members and help them to make those phone calls. Write them a script. A board member making a personal call is more powerful than any letter you'll ever send. Praying with donors, hearing donors' personal stories, and the why that they give. Why are you giving to this ministry? Invite your board members to write handwritten notes to your top donors. The executive director should provide the cards, maybe somebody on the team provide the cards, the addresses, a couple of opening sentences for the suggested message for your board members, and let them write a personal note. We're so thankful that you're giving, you're really making a difference. So hosting or helping them host a small discovery dinner for 6 to 10 prospective donors. And we've got roadmaps for that on how to host an in-home meeting. It really can be kind of a lot of fun. Preparing for your board an impact report that they can easily share with their personal network. So if the executive director approaches fundraising with anxiety or apology, the board will mirror that. A culture of generosity is built on gratitude, not guilt. Every interaction with board member has a donor with a donor should leave that donor feeling like a partner, not a target, and certainly not a cash register or an ATM machine. Did I move too fast?
No, Ron, you're on mute.
Sorry, I had a lawnmower go by my window. I didn't want to tell you that. So the point is, I attended a board meeting and they handed out thank you cards and they gave them a list and say, "Hey, here are the people that we need to thank this month." It was cool, and they collected them, they mailed them later, but board members were actually involved in the thank you calls. So I thought that was great. Okay, now a little bit of chat. Let's jump into the chat and say, how would you describe the generosity culture your executive director models? So if you're the executive director, we're asking you to be honest. If you're sitting next to the executive director, you can decide if you're going to be political or honest. So here it is. Are you enthusiastic? Are you cautious? Somewhere in between. Throw something in the chat. Let's see your answers.
We got an A right out of the
I
gate.
like the A right off the bat. That's cool.
Enthusiastic.
Rocking it. That's cool. We need to see that. All right. All right. Oh, man.
4 A's.
4 A's. That's cool. Now, Drew, are you the executive director, though? That's what I want to know.
I want to party with Drew.
Yeah. Good job. Oh, okay. Board president. Good job.
And we've got some honesty. A and B. I like, that's real.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. Well, that was fun. Thanks for doing that. That's great. So now we want to move into implementation. Rich, help us. How do we steward with excellence?
Yeah, rounding third, heading home. So this is the 7th habit. And really, we need to look at it from 2 angles. One, we need to look at the individual board member, his or herself, and then the board as a whole. And so on an individual level, stewarding with excellence really begins with honest conversations in the recruitment process, really up front. And we need to talk about long-term commitment and some of those some of those questions and in that conversation. And here are the questions that I usually ask, and I would recommend them to you. One, how long do you see yourself serving if we extend an invitation? So while good, healthy boards should have term limits, we want them to make it to the term. And so you want to make sure that they're going to be in it and really stick it out for their commitment. Also, I ask, are you in a season where you can give this role the time that it actually deserves? Some people might be an ideal candidate for the board, but the season might be off. Maybe they're dealing with an aging parent. Maybe they're going through some things with their family, with their children. Maybe the timing isn't right. So make sure that they're in a season where they can give you the commitment. Their yes will be yes. Here's another one. What would keep you from being fully present with this work? So you want to make sure there are no distractions, that this person can actually come in and serve a good role on the board. So here's a red flag. Red flag is overcommitment. So if you have a candidate that's overcommitted and sees this as just one more seat to fill, you really want to avoid that. Because healthy boards, they're built by people who say yes to fewer things and actually do them better. So we want their yes to be yes, and we want them to give a good commitment to what they've agreed to do. So that's the individual level. Board level. So board level requires 4 structural practices that we recommend in order for stewardship to happen. The first one would be a board annual self-assessment. And that's a simple tool that surfaces gaps in engagement, maybe it's skill or even health, the culture of the organization. So it doesn't need to be complicated. Even a one-page rating tool can be used that would be reviewed together and would produce valuable conversation and move the organization forward. So a self-assessment, that's a good thing. Term limits, as I mentioned before, and off-ramps. So what they do is they create graceful exits for members who finish their season. And this honors their service, but it also does an important thing. It creates space for the next generation of leaders that need to be a part of that board. Third, succession planning. So not only succession planning for the organization's leader, the CEO, executive director, and so forth, but the board itself. And so we want to identify and cultivate the next board chair 12 to 18 months before transition. One thing that would be a no-no is to come to a board retreat and say, hey, we haven't had a new chairperson in a while. Let's take up a vote. Hey, Chad, you're it. Go. No, we want to have some sort of transition here. We want to make sure that the new person walking in really understands where we're heading and the scope of the role. And so give them a heads up. And then 4, we want to look at board culture. We want to model and reinforce the standard. So don't tolerate chronic absence or disengagement. That's a no-no. If you begin to let people off the hook on that, you're going to have a problem. Make sure that they show up on time and they show up every time. Now, some things happen and we get that, but make sure that chronic absences are not okay. Accountability, it's not harsh. It's actually honoring. It's honoring to the person. It's honoring to the organization as well.
I also want to talk to you about a couple tools in your board recruitment pipeline. You need to have 10 to 15 prospective board candidates out there. You need to be thinking about this because you don't want to be caught with some open seats and nobody really to be able to fill them. So you need to develop this list. So identify a living candidate list. Then you need to cultivate these candidates. And that takes time to get to know them. You're trying to figure out, is it a match? Is it a fit? Would we enjoy them? Would they enjoy us? Could they help us? And then you want to, when you get to the point of inviting them, you need to extend a formal invitation only after they've met some expectations and that you've clearly communicated to them. And the candidate has expressed their mission alignment. So it's trying to work ahead and anticipate we need transition on the board. So who is the future board member in our sites? A second tool I think is helpful for you to have is this board member statement of agreement that we've talked about. We're not trying to recruit in desperation. Here is what we're asking people to agree to do when they join the board. So we mentioned some of this, the spiritual commitment. We want to see that. We also want to see financial commitment. We want to see engagement. These are the types of things in the board member statement of agreement that we want to sign on the dotted line. Here's the kind of things we're looking for. We're asking for attendance. We're asking for ambassadorship. We're asking for fundraising participation. We've got the confidentiality and conflict of interest. There's so many things in this board member statement of agreement that you need to get on paper so you have expectations. And these are the types of things that help us clearly communicate to friends, here's what we're expecting as you join us for this ministry. Well, so that's going to be one of the tools that we're going to share with you. So we talked about all these things, the ambassadorship, the fundraising participation. We talked about the confidentiality, the term length. There's all sorts of other good things that we're sharing with them. So healthy boards don't just happen. They're built by executive directors and board chairs that lead with clarity and intention. So, if you don't have a healthy board, you need to take some positive, proactive steps to try to find, recruit, and train your next board members.
So
Rich,
let's make these steps a reality. Let's operationalize this right now. So what's one thing you'll do differently in the next 90 days to actually build a healthier board? That's your challenge. That's your task. Even right now, scribble something down, write it down. What would you do? Not 10 things. Let's focus on one. What's one recruitment conversation that you should have? What's one expectation that you never clearly communicated to your board that you can do so at the next board meeting? What's one habit that you'll build into that next meeting? Be thinking about those things. Let's put it on paper. Let's make it actionable now.
that's really great. So we've got just a few minutes left, and we love to open it up for question and answers. How can we help you? What are the things that you're struggling with that you need some encouragement with? And we'd love to be able to talk about your particular situation. Okay, so here's one. We have a board member who is disengaged, has stopped attending. What's the right conversation to have, and who should have it? Which of you guys want to field that one?
Well,
I'd be
Chad,
happy to. I'd be happy to. So I think you do. Sometimes time and space doesn't allow for people to continue with the commitment that they made in the beginning. Coming alongside that board member, not in the middle of the board meeting, have a lunch, make a telephone call, and really just address, hey, what's going on in your life? How, how is it that I can help you? Is this a commitment that you're still, able to fulfill? And help them to have an easy out. If it really isn't, that's great. But if it is, then you remind them of, hey, look, we've noticed that you've been absent from a few meetings, and I just want to remind you again of what we're needing, and what, this is important work, and really, really need your participation here. You're an important member on the board. So reinforce the value of them being there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, here's another one. How do you introduce financial giving expectations to a board that has never had them?
Mm.
And how do you do it without making them mad?
that's the key there, Rod, right? No, actually, that stat you gave before is quite alarming. Only 46% of all boards give at a 100%
Right.
level. And I think helping them understand the why is the first and most important thing. And
Yeah.
why should 100% of the board participate in giving? Well, because your funders care. Foundations certainly care. Some corporations care, and individual major donors care because they want to know what the closest insiders to the organization are doing. So why would I want to give if your board's not giving? That's a real common question. So one, make sure they understand the why, that it's important that they lead, and they lead the way, and they model that for even the major donors that are out there that you want to get connected with. Another thing would be to help them understand that we're looking for a sacrificial gift. We're not looking for a specific dollar amount. It's what that means to you. So we really want you to be in the top three giver. This needs to be one of the top three organizations you give to if you're participating at the leadership level. So again, help them understand the why, and then also make sure they understand we're not prescribing a specific amount. It's whatever's a sacrifice to you.
Yeah, that's good.
Drew has a great question in here, and I appreciate that, about being too heavy-handed. That's real. I mean, honestly, time, talent, treasure. There are contributions that your board members can make that aren't necessarily financial. But it is true that the give or get philosophy. Can you help us give or get $5,000 a year? That's really key. People that can't necessarily grab their wallet for one more gift could introduce you to two, three, four people a year that could. So if they're telling the story, what we're looking for here is board involvement, board engagement, board that has their sleeves rolled up. So we wouldn't want ever anybody to be shamed for not giving enough or whatever their contribution is. And yes, you don't want to be real, you guys have to give and you're not giving. And it's never that with that spirit or attitude.
No, it's not. It's not. We're not coercing. We're not cajoling. We're not making people feel guilty or shaming them. I knew a college president that knew he wanted 100% participation with the board and his staff and his faculty. So he would go around, if people weren't giving it, he would actually give them a 20 and say, "Now here, give this back to the school." So we're not recommending that. But what we are saying is we really want people to have skin in the game, even if it's a minimal amount. Would like them to be a giver. And as Chad said, help us
Right.
find the money too by influencing other people.
Yeah. No, that's good. Here's another question. Are term limits a good practice for board members?
Yes, 100% yes. In fact, I think it's important for a couple of reasons, three reasons. One, because you don't want this to be a life sentence for somebody.
Right.
You, you want them to have a good
Or
exit
you.
strategy, or you. Two, you really want to think about the next generation of leaders. If you have the same people that have been on the board for 20 and 25 years, you really need to bring a new crop of leaders in and give them a chance. And then third, you want fresh ideas. You want fresh ideas, and you don't want to be a closed system. You want to have new people that are coming in that can encourage you and help you to think bigger.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'd say too, it's not like a once and done. We're talking about the spirit of rotation. So 3 years on, 1 year off, and then maybe come back on the board. If you've got valuable board members, I'm not saying that, but maybe in that year off, they're coming back to the table then having fresh ideas like Rich was talking about. So, give them an out. Maybe in that year they decide they don't want to continue on the board. But we're not saying, oh, 3 years and you guys, that's it, you're done here on the board. But just the spirit of rotation is a great idea.
Yeah. Well, if you have a system, then um, not inviting somebody back is easier. Say, God bless you. We're thankful for you. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away.
Ron, is that the right hand of fellowship? Is that what that is?
Blessed be the name of the Lord. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
So here's another one. Our board has served faithfully. We've never had a formal recruitment pipeline. Where do we start?
Yeah,
What do you
well,
think?
I think identifying your gaps is the first thing you need to do. What skills do you need? What are you missing now that's going to take the organization into the future for where you want to
Right.
go? So identify what those skills are, and then you can begin to think about who might fill that skill set that you need.
That's so important. I think many times we look around our Bible study and say, hey, that guy would be good or that lady would be great. And maybe they would, but maybe you need to have more of a profile. Maybe you need that business person that has some uh, business acumen, right? That you don't have in your skill set. So you don't want to just um, spend a seat and find a chair. You don't want to have people just show up because they're nice people. You want them to be nice people when they show up, but you want to have somebody that's going to bring something to the table to try to help you um, move forward. Okay, so we're running out of time. One last one here. Okay, so is it ever too late to reset board expectations? Ooh, how do you reset board expectations?
It's kind of like asking them for money, isn't it?
It is, right.
It needs to happen. And I think clarity is how we always move forward and stay on mission. And so I believe that those types of things can happen certainly in a retreat setting when you have a little bit more time than a typical, hour-long board meeting. It's a good idea to go through where we're at, where we want to go, and what we need of you to move forward, especially if you have an attendance issue. You got to have some of those come to Jesus moments, but expectations also might be around giving and other things like that. So I think when you have more time than an average board meeting, it's great to go through that and really examine where we've been and what the expectations are to move forward.
And I think another thing that's really important, if you're the executive director, you need a chairman of the board who's strong, bold, courageous, who has a vision with you, who can come alongside and provide the leadership necessary for the board to make tough decisions. So, those are things you got to pray through and try to find. Well, thanks so much, guys. It's always great to just talk about anything with you guys. It's fun. So, let's we're kind of wrapping up here. We're coming to the end of our time, but we have a couple things for you. So, we have prepared a board health audit. And so this is a quick one page, walks you through the kind of questions you could ask. Your board chair can hand out and says, okay, let's do this anonymously, and figure out how do we score and what can we do to improve? So what's going to happen is after our session today, you're going to have a follow-up email. We have a quick little survey we'd like you to fill out and tell us how we did and tell us what you want next time and give us some feedback. But we're also going to give you this resource of the board health audit. We're also going to give you another resource, a board member statement of agreement. So this is a one-page document that says, okay, as a board member, I've got this responsibility and this and this and this, and I agree that these are the types of things that I am willing to do for this ministry. So those two resources are a free gift to you for joining us today and investing your time with us today. Another thing we'd like to just remind you of is that if you need to talk about something and you want to have a conversation with one of our consultants, we're always happy just to talk. Maybe you need a shoulder to cry on. Maybe you need something. Sometimes we find our consulting is counseling and encouraging, and we want to do that for you. So if you're in a situation and you need some advice, what do I do? How do we do it? We'd be glad to take a little time just to pray with you and help you and encourage you. So connect with us. hello@timothygroup.com. We'd be happy to jump in on a Zoom call and hear your story and figure out how we could help you. We also have a great opportunity coming up, and we're trying to figure out what that looks like. So, Chad.
Yeah, take us up on that 30-minute call. We're serial fundraisers. We love this stuff, and we'd love to talk with you about it, pray with you about it. But look, I'd like to invite everyone on the call. We have upcoming our Grounded and Growing Fundraising Intensive, live and in person. This event is coming up Thursday, September the 10th. Still going to be warm in Grand Rapids at the Drury Inn and Suites. So it's here in Michigan, Grand Rapids. It's a full day event designed specifically for leaders like you who are serious about building a fundraising program that honors God and sustains your mission. So these events tend to fill up fast. So I would encourage you to register today. There will be a follow-up email with a link for you to register. I think it will be in your chat as well. Is it in the chat? Keep in mind, you can bring a board member for free and look for the coupon code. It will show you how to bring that board member for free. So again, we'd love to spend time with you. It's a great chance for one-on-one, talk, pray, learn some insights, and it's a valuable time. Come to Growing and Grounded.
That's good. Good. Well, thanks so much, everybody. So before I close in prayer, next just this thought. Healthy boards don't just happen. They're built by executive directors and board chairs who lead with clarity and intention. I mean, this is one of your roles and responsibilities. But the Apostle Paul says it this way. Remember 1 Corinthians 15:58. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. And so board development work is the Lord's work. It's hard work, but it's the Lord's work. The people you recruit, the ones you develop, the ones you release in the kingdom service, they're not just your volunteers, they're stewards of your ministry. Well, I hope you join us next time. Next webinar is in September. It's called What Do You Do Now? What you do now impacts December 31st. So we're going to be talking about your year-end sprint to the fiscal year-end. So to be year-end ready. Hey, let me close in a word of prayer. Lord, I thank you for these friends. I pray you just encourage them and help them as they work with their boards. We thank you for all the boards represented by these ministries. They're doing wonderful work. It's a sacrificial of their time, talent, and treasure. Bless them, help them, encourage them. Lord, we love you, and we want to do the very best we can for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.